6:30, I'm calling to order the Pickens County Council work session of Monday, May 19th, 2025. First item up is the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilor Chris Bowers.
Let's pray. Our dear Lord, gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight to say thank you. Thank you for all the many blessings that you've given us here, Lord. We pray that you be with us tonight as we do the work of the county. Have these discussions. Help us have a clear and open mind, dear Lord. Help us learn. Help us make the right decisions for the residents of the county, Lord. We thank you again for all the blessings. We pray that you be with our men and women here at home, keeping us safe, and our men and women overseas, Lord. We thank you. We love you. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first item after the pledge is going to be item 2A. It's a public hearing and third reading on a fee in lieu of tax agreement between the county government and the Speedway project on Highway 124. Mr. Roper, you're up first.
Yes, I'll recognize Mr. C. Rhodes. He may give you general background about that for the public hearing purposes.
Certainly. Mr. Chairman, what you have in front of you tonight is, in addition to this public hearing, third reading of the ordinance authorizing the master fee agreement and reimbursement agreement with, you see the LLC name in there, but it's Realty Link, not to spoil it for everybody. Since you gave second reading to the ordinance authorizing these agreements, made a couple of small changes that I'll just very quickly make you aware of. One of the questions that we talked about a little bit last time was whether or not they could ever use the speedway itself as a speedway. I think at this point that's not their intention, but we added in the reimbursement agreement just a caveat that there's nothing in these agreements that would prevent them from doing that. If they so chose, they would still have to comply with all county land use regulations and other regulations, but nothing in these agreements would preclude them from being able to do that if they wanted to pursue it at some point in time in the future. It's not an authorization for them to do it, but it's just allowing them to do it without violating these agreements. The other changes are to the Exhibit A in both the master fee agreement and the reimbursement agreement. Once we really started looking closely at those legal descriptions for the properties that are excluded from these master fee agreements, which originally were intended to be L-Ring Klinger buildings 1 and 2, the facilities that are under the L-Ring Klinger FILO that was approved last year, and also Caroline Handling, which was another fee agreement that was approved last year. Those were intended to be excluded. The legal descriptions described a much larger piece of property that was excluded, so we revised those to just exclude those 3 facilities effectively. Everything else in here is, aside from filling in a few blanks here and there, exactly what you saw in the second reading.
Okay. I'm going to make it's a public hearing. First.
That's right.
So we had a third reading, and law requires to have a public hearing on this, where anybody can stand up and actually speak about this project for or against, or give an opinion on it. So I'm going to open that up. Anybody want to speak about this project? It's the Speedway project on 123 and 124? Easily. Going once, twice, 3 times. Public hearing's closed. I'm going to make a motion now for third reading to accept this as presented. Do I hear a second? Any discussion?
I have one question here. This is found on page 51 of 147. The paragraph reads, whereas the company estimates that the development of phase 1 and 2 of the Speedway part will involve an investment approximately of $32.8 million in infrastructure, site development and related costs, which will allow the development to approximately build a 2.3 million square foot industrial space. Now, here's the comment I have a two-fold question on. The company estimates that the development and the build-out of the Speedway Park will result in new investment in the county of approximately $750 million. My question is, how did we derive at that number? And the second part of the question would be, is that over the duration of X amount of years?
Great question. So, as with all of the projections for investment, those typically are going to come from companies, and that is the case here. So they have provided an investment projection based on the acreage that they have, the square footage of industrial facilities that they think that acreage could ultimately support, and then I'm sure a per square foot estimate of what it takes, what you have to invest in order to build out those facilities. Right. So those are all projections. Oftentimes with fee agreements, the companies make, if we have a fee agreement with an individual company, they have a contractual investment that they have to meet. That's going to be higher than the minimum investment that's statutory. So you'll see a representation from the company. We expect we're going to invest $30 million, and we'll usually have an investment threshold they have to meet contractually. That's a little bit of a discount from what their expectation is, setting them up for success. So $27 million might be the contractual obligation. Here, because we are, the ultimate goal here is the development of the park. We will have investment requirements for the FELO agreements that the county enters into with each individual company that locates in the park. This fee only applies to the real property improvements. It doesn't apply to machinery and equipment. And these companies are going to expect a FELO that covers that too. So we will have specific investment requirements for each individual company that's tied to what their expectations are. Here, because the goal is to develop a park, not to achieve a certain level of investment, we don't have a contractual investment requirement for this master fee agreement. So I say all that to say those are projections for the company. They don't have a contractual obligation to meet that investment requirement. They have a contractual obligation to develop a park. They only get reimbursed for their infrastructure if they are successful in locating companies within the park. So there's a lot of incentive for them to go about doing that. And I think you have a second question, and I have.
The second question, over what period of time could this investment be expected?
So, and I'm stealing my own thunder a little bit, talking about economic development generally. But these fee agreements, when we enter into them, they have to have, per statute, an investment period. So that investment period it serves two purposes. It is the time frame in which the company is obligated to make the investment and create the number of jobs that they have agreed to create and invest under the agreement. It's a 5-year period is typically where you start. It is also the period of time in which the investment that they make qualifies for the benefits of a fee agreement. So if you make your investment within that 5-year window, then you receive all the benefits of the fee agreement. If that investment period ends and you make additional investment in year 6 and you don't have any other agreements in place to deal with that investment is just subject to normal county ad valorem property taxes. So typically you're looking at a 5-year investment period. Statute allows you to extend that investment period for most projects to as much as 10 years. So what we have done here, because this is a longer term project, we have already kind of pre-extended the investment period to 10 years. So to answer your question, that is the investment that they expect to realize within the park over a 10-year time frame, okay, which is the investment period.
All right. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Yeah. I had an observation. There's in the fee in lieu of payment, there's $6,392,017. In some, it's mentioned I think 8 different places in the packet, And sometimes it says it may not exceed, in other places says it shall not exceed, or in one case says nor shall it exceed. Why the differences between may not and shall not? Because that's legally different, correct?
So I think for our purposes here, it's not. I think it's a good guess. If I had it all over again, I perhaps would say shall not in every case. But it is clear that for a variety of reasons, the amount that the county will ultimately or could ultimately pay to Realty Link cannot exceed that amount. There are, for each infrastructure project that the county is going to contribute to, there is a maximum amount that the county will contribute for each project. And then the amount is additionally limited to not exceed 50% of the actual amount of the project. So if it's $1 million project, the county's reimbursement is $500,000. If the project comes in at $800,000, then the county will only reimburse up to $400,000. So perhaps that could have been drafted a little bit tighter, but ultimately I am absolutely confident that the county will not, under any circumstances, pay them more than $6,392,000 and some change.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions? Okay, those in favor, from item 2A, raise your right hand. Those opposed, same sign. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next item up is number 2B. It's a presentation from Alliance Pickens. Mr. Roper.
Yeah, the idea here, Mr. Chairman and members of council, is that a lot of times you're asked to make decisions on large economic incentive programs, and I'm not sure, and I think you've expressed to me your trepidation about that because you don't feel like you have the same knowledge base. So the idea here, and this is probably won't be the last of such these conversations, but is to have Mr. Rhodes, since he comes to us quite frequently with these, give us a good 10-minute overview of the general approach to these sorts of things, so we can just continue to layer those knowledge bases. And so if it suits you, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn over to him. I'm driving the PowerPoint, so you're going to have to tell me when to. Perfect. We had a lightning strike, so we're down a little bit on our tech here. No problem. Mr. Farley will be here too in case questions come up.
Go ahead. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, so I do appreciate the opportunity to come in front of you and talk about economic development in a more general sense. We are typically talking about it on a project-by-project basis. Oftentimes we're talking about it under the gun, trying to get an offer out to commerce or trying to, to firm things up with a company that the county's trying to recruit. Timing is always an issue. And so we have limited ability to talk about this stuff generally because we're so kind of in the weeds talking about the specifics. So I want to run through, today at least, the basic tools that we are using, that the county is using on a month-to-month basis for economic development. Before I do that, go back one more. I do want to put it in a larger context. So I don't want you to get an outsized view of the importance of incentives in the larger economic development effort. At the end of the day, in order for the county to ever have the opportunity to win a project, competing against 2 or 3 other counties or states or countries out there in the world, by offering them incentives, in order to ever get to that step in the process, there's a lot of other stuff that has to happen. You have to have a good labor force. The labor force here in Pickens County is a good one. You've got efforts that you engage in on an annual basis, the Scholar Technician Program, to help build your labor force to make sure that it stays competitive. And that's a big one because you can't change that overnight. That's the product of years or decades of work to develop that labor force that keeps you competitive. You got to have product. You got to have buildings, land for these companies to locate on. You got to have good, high quality, reliable, and reasonably priced utilities. You got to have a fair and equitable tax system at both the county and the state level in order to stay competitive. Only if you have successfully checked all of those boxes do you ever get to the point where you have the opportunity to win deals by offering incentives. That is the absolute last step in the process. After, in some cases, 2 or 3 years of effort of proving that you got your labor squared away and that you have product to sell them and you have good competitors. So it's the thing that we always talk about because it's the lever that you most directly control, but it is the last step in a much, much larger process. And so I think you need to understand that before we kind of get into all these individual tools. So I'm going to jump right into it because I know we have limited time here. The first tool that you see used on almost a monthly basis, whether you are using it or your common partner, Oconee County, is using it, is a multi-county park. So you will often see ordinances where Oconee has asked you to enact an ordinance putting property in Oconee County in a multi-county park, and you do the exact same thing with Oconee County. We went through the process of putting the Speedway Park in multi-county park last year, and Greenville County was Pickens County's partner in that effort. A multi-county park ultimately is really just a designation that the county applies to a piece of real property. The reason it's called a multi-county park is because you can only designate a property as a park by entering into an agreement with another county. And the reason why we have that strange system goes back into the history of economic development state. I won't get into it, but that's ultimately how you go through the process of designating the property as a multi-county park. The effect of that designation is most important. The effect of that designation is it changes, it makes the property within the park exempt from ad valorem property taxes constitutionally. But, this is the big but, the owner of that property has to pay a fee to the county that is the same as what their property taxes would have otherwise been. So what you are effectively doing is you are taking that property tax revenue and you are changing it from tax revenue to fee revenue by waving this magic wand over it. Once you do that, once you've taken that step, it gives the county the ability to exercise a much greater degree of control over the entirety of that revenue stream. And when I say revenue stream, I mean the taxes that are generated by all of the taxing entities within the county. Both the county, the school district, fire districts, with consent of municipality, if you get their consent to put property in a municipality in a park. You can then change how that money is allocated. You can retain a greater share of it to fund your own economic development efforts. The county already does that. You take your annual costs for economic development, grants that you have given to companies, work that you've done to improve sites, and you take that off the top of all the multi-county park revenue that comes in before you distribute money to other taxing entities. That's a very common way that counties fund at least a portion of their economic development efforts. It also gives you the ability to use a portion of that revenue to further reduce the property taxes of companies that want to locate here. Those are called special source revenue credits. We'll talk about those a little more later on. It gives you the ability to use part of that revenue and pay it to a third party who are making other investments in economic development. In this case, Realty Link, the agreement you just approved, approves a special source revenue payment to Realty Link. That's that $6.4 million is going to be made to Realty Link through these special source payments over time. So the foundation of all of that is the placement of the property in a multi-county park. In and of itself, without being combined with any other incentive, it doesn't cost the county a dime. It does, however, give the companies the ability to get other state incentives. Most importantly, the jobs tax credits that companies can take as an income tax credit. In order to be eligible for those, they have to be located in a multi-county park. So even if you have a project where there's no fee agreement involved, there's no special source credits, the companies will still want to be located in a park because it gives them access to those jobs tax credits. So you'll see those coming across your desk on a monthly basis between Pickens County and Oconee County. All right. And by the way, guys, if you have any questions, please interrupt me at any time. I'm happy to answer any you might have. The next tool that you see used probably next most frequently are fee in lieu of tax agreements. The terminology here gets a little bit confusing. If the property is located in a multi-county park, then the payment that's made to the county is a fee in lieu of tax. They're paying a fee, as I said. The same thing applies to FELO agreements. Whether it's located in a multi-county park or not, if it's subject to a fee agreement, similarly, the payment that is made to the county is a fee in lieu of tax, hence the name fee in lieu agreement. So the terminology is a little bit confusing there. Ultimately, the benefits are what you should focus on. The reason that companies want a fee in lieu agreement from the county is it provides them with 3 benefits. Number one, it reduces the assessment ratio for all of the industrial property from 10.5% to 6%. That's the big incentive that they are going after. That's a significant reduction in their property taxes. It fixes the millage rate that's used to calculate their property taxes for the term of the fee agreement. So that can be 20 to 30 years, in some rare cases 40 years. So that millage rate, right now you're at 260 some odd mills. That won't change for those companies for the entire term of the fee agreement. And then finally, it essentially locks in the value of the real property improvements over that same period of time. And there is some ability to change some of this stuff under the statute, but most FELO deals that you see are going to have those 3 components that are locked in for the entire term of the fee. There are some eligibility requirements that you have to meet. You have to have at least a $2.5 million investment within the county. You have to, most importantly, that investment has to be new investment. So occasionally you'll see companies come to you that are buying existing buildings, aging industrial facilities that require a lot of upfit or rehab to make them suitable for modern usage. Well, if that building has been subject to South Carolina property taxes previously, then it's not eligible to be under a fee agreement. But the company's coming in, they're making a big investment, they want the benefits of a fee even though they don't qualify for one. So in some of those cases, we'll do what are called synthetic fee in lieu of tax agreements, using special source credits that are calculated to give them essentially the same effective benefit that they would have under a fee agreement. So it typically is only going to apply to new investment, both personal property, machinery and equipment, and new buildings that companies are actually constructing within the county. And then finally, the county can ask for higher contractual requirements for both investment and job creation, which is a practice that the county has typically engaged in over the years for most companies. There are super or enhanced FELOs. Those are much larger investments, $150 million and 125 jobs created combined, or a $400 million investment allows you to qualify for a 4% assessment ratio and a both longer term and also a longer investment period than you would be able to qualify for under a normal fee agreement.
Mr. Rhodes?
Yes.
Those numbers, the $2.5 million minimum investment, job numbers, the assessment ratios, are those all coming to us from the state?
Yes. So, well, the $2.5 million number is statutory.
If state.
Correct. So in order to, the FELO agreements are authorized by statute, and it includes the eligibility requirements and also other technical stuff like the length of the investment term, the maximum term for the fee agreement. All of that is established by statute.
So can county law, could we change that number, for example?
You could go higher, you could not go lower.
Okay.
So you could say, we're not going to entertain a fee in lieu of tax agreement unless a company is coming in and making a $15 million investment. You can certainly do that. It's just a policy decision at that point. It's not a law that you're enacting, but you're just saying, $15 million, or we're not really interested in talking to you. But you could not offer a fee agreement for a lower investment. Now, all of that said, you've got these special source revenue credits sitting over here. As long as the property is in a multi-county park, you can use that. They are incredibly flexible. You can use them to achieve any result that you want, whether it's property taxes each year of a fixed number. The company says, we only want to pay $200,000 a year in property taxes, so your credit isn't a number or a percentage. It's just, we will give you whatever credit is necessary to reduce your property taxes to $200,000. You can also use those, if a company is making a $2 million investment but they're bringing lots of other value to the table for various reasons, then you can create a synthetic FELO for that company using special source grants. So you can achieve those same benefits through other means other than by offering them a fee agreement. And counties do it all the time, including when you have some of these aging industrial buildings that need to be rehabbed but wouldn't otherwise qualify. And that investment can come in both real property improvements and also in personal property. So with Speedway Park, for instance, we will likely have second fee agreements with all the individual companies. Those fee agreements will only apply to the personal property that they install, as long as they're installing at least $2.5 million worth, which most will, then you can offer them a fee. Any other questions so far? Kind of breezing through
I have
this.
one. if
Yes,
you
sir.
mind. Is there anything in place that would disincentivize companies from coming in, utilizing a 20-year FELO agreement and then hopping over to the next county and repeating that process?
So that's a great question, and that gets to clawbacks. So, and it's a tricky question as well, because you have two kind of competing interests there. On the one hand, you want companies to do what they said they're going to do. So if you said you're going to invest $20 million and you're going to create 150 jobs, then you should create you should invest $20 million and create 150 jobs. And these are the incentives that we offered you to get you to do that. At the same time, if a company comes in and they're here for 5 years or 10 years and they pull up stakes and they go somewhere else, you still have a building that's sitting there. And that building's not doing anybody any good if it doesn't have another company that locates in there that is installing new equipment and creating new jobs. So, and we'll talk about clawbacks a little bit when we start talking about grants and property contribution. Those are upfront incentives that the county will sometimes provide to companies, where the company is kind of extracting all of that value upfront. So you want to make sure you have a good clawback in place, so that if the company doesn't do what they say they're going to do, you can't get the property back. It's got a $20 million industrial facility on it, but at least you can make them write a check. And we have just recently. Safeplast was a company that we entered into a FELO agreement with, given them a grant, and also given them some property. They pulled out after 5 or 6 years and wanted to sell the property to another company, which is good. We wanted to do that because we want somebody else in there creating jobs. You don't want it just sitting there. At the same time, you gave them an upfront grant and you contributed the property to them. They shouldn't have the ability to just walk away with all of that money. So the county does have the ability, if a company doesn't meet its investment requirements within that investment period, to withdraw the benefits of the FELO, to terminate the FELO. If we're being practical, in most cases, it's not in your interest to do that because the next company is going to expect a FELO. That's kind of the floor. That's what everybody expects. So in most cases, you're going to leave the fee in place in hopes that Ray's going to get out there and get you a new tenant for the company or for the building as quickly as possible. For the upfront incentives, we want to get some of that money back. So we'll have proportionate clawbacks based on the investment that they made and the jobs that they created. And they have to write us a check in order for these benefits to be assigned over to the next company. That's exactly what happened with Safeplast. We assigned the fee agreement over to TaylorMade. They're operating in there now. But we made the company write the county about an $80,000 check for the benefit of that assignment. So that's, there's a holding the company's feet to the fire. But there's also the practical, what is ultimately in the long-term interest of the county. It's not always beating the company over the head, even when you would really like to do that.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I wonder, because I know that CD has several slides more, and I know that we're balancing a lot of concerns tonight, so I don't know what your appetite is for continuing.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
For him? All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome. We'll certainly come back and add to this, so
Yeah,
thank you very
absolutely.
much for flexibility.
All right, next up is going to be item number 2C, which is the fiscal year 26 capital budget. 3 parts of this. First, I'm going to just do a quick review of some of the projects that are underway right now. Then Mr. Roper's gonna outline his proposal for the capital budget for next year, and then third, we'll introduce vehicle maintenance. So some of the projects that are underway right now is EMS stations and Central is finished. Easley's gonna be going out for bid.
It's actually out for bid now.
It's out for bid right now, and Medic One,
Medic One, we're still refining the plan on that, trying to value engineer that down.
okay. Caroline Investors Building, we're looking to get in there by the end of the year.
That's
Floor. The Easley Library, HVAC, we're gonna start that in the summer and end it in the spring?
That's right, that's correct.
Yeah, in about 42 weeks from when we start.
Okay, and the 9/11 call center, we're looking to finish that up in March of 2026, and sewer at the Stockade in December 2026.
That's correct.
Okay, he's gonna give us details on the current budget proposal, but the three big items in there are Mile Creek electrical and water upgrades, and that's gonna be the spring, finished up by the spring of 2026. Roof replacement on this building, we're shooting for August 2025, and then the airport runway repaving, I think that's a $2 million project. So the details of the capital budget proposal from the administration is page 43 and 44. So Ralph will, Mr. Roper.
Yeah,
Some highlights on that.
No, thank you. I think you've given a good review of the timing of all of those. In terms of what's coming up and included in this budget, I'll defer to Ralph to talk more about those specifically for the big capital, the big projects.
Yeah, if we wanted to start out on page 43 and 44, that's the capital, what we did call a capital for 2026. They'll start out at general government, and we kind of list it by the department based on the function they're under. And then you have public safety, public works, next page, health and welfare, cultural recreation and transportation. And then it gives a source of revenue of how we're gonna pay for it. Tony is the main person that handles rolling stock. So we're talking about anything that with wheels on it, your sheriff's vehicles, heavy equipment at solid waste. So he's kind of put this budget together based on what he thinks is needed for each department. They turn in a lot of requests, but then we narrow it down to what he recommends, and then obviously input from the administrator if he knows of something that we're not aware of that needs to be in the budget. So I don't know if y'all want to go through line item by line item.
Well, does anybody have any questions about the capital budget, page 43 and 44?
And we also have Dirk who handles some of the more permanent, like Medic One.
Does anybody have any questions on that? I would just like you to review, it's $11.9 million. Just review the source of funds on it.
Okay, so if we go to page 44, the total for all capital is $11,000,009. Now that's made up of several different sources. General fund is making up about 5.7 million of that. Public Service Commission, I believe they have a truck that's needs replacing, so they're in a separate fund. They have money to pay for their truck. Fire districts, if you look on the previous page under public safety, you'll see a section for fire districts. That total, I don't have a subtotal per department, but the total of that is what the fire district is going to pay for, and they're going to use a combination of money in their operational account and then a little bit of fund balance that they have in savings. And then the airport, that major project for rehabilitation out there, they're constantly doing projects. From what I recall, that's going to be a 95-5. So when we say that, 90% is going to be paid by the federal government with a grant. 5% is going to be paid from the state. They'll chip in 5% of that amount. And then the local portion will be the county's portion, and that'll be paid from the airport fund.
What's the timetable on that? Do you know?
I don't have the details, Dirk. I don't know if you.
I don't have that either.
Yeah,
Okay.
we wanted to get it in the budget,
Okay.
so we don't have to come back
Sometime
and amend the
next year, you
budget. Pardon me?
Sometime next year?
Yeah, probably it's gonna probably be September, let's see, October 1st. That's generally when the federal government starts their fiscal year.
Okay, so roads and bridges, you mentioned, Mr. Roper, that their equipment's quite old. How are you taking care of them or addressing that this?
Well, what we've done is when we went through the budget committee process, that's one of the things through our capital improvement plan that Mr. Chastain's been working on, is trying to modernize what they have. I know you can see in there that there's 2 dump trucks, a flatbed truck, and a 4x4 cab truck that are being purchased there.
These replacement trucks, they're in the 80s, early 90s, year model, have quite a bit of miles on them, and they're ready for replacement. It's getting harder and harder to find parts for them. We've had them in the fleet for quite some time.
Okay. Any
I would
other-
say, Mr.
any-
Chairman, those dump trucks, the Roads and Bridges guys love those because they've been dependable all these years. But it is time to part with it.
Okay, before we drill down on vehicle maintenance and those particular items, any other questions about the general capital items listed? Do you have one, Council Linville? No, you're good. The only thing that I would have to say about these big projects, I counted $8 million projects that are underway right now. Once we approve this, so it'd be 8 of them. I would like to see the administration, get some of them to the finish line before we approve any more. I mean, there's a lot. It's the most I can remember times I've been following the council. That's just my only opinion. Do you have any thoughts on the capital budget? What's in front of you there? Okay, this is going to be part of the third reading, so we'll approve this on June 2nd. So now, vehicle maintenance. This is why you're here. You got a presentation for us, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, rock and roll.
I'm getting another trade. I didn't know I was doing all the presentation. Sorry.
That's okay.
While he's doing that, I'll just say the last item on the source of revenue is the local accommodation fee. And that's for the Mile Creek upgrades that we talked, or maybe gonna talk about, that needs to be done out there.
Could you just give us a quick 1, 2, 3 phases on that, Allison?
Sure,
Or whoever can.
They broke it down, but yeah, absolutely. So, phase 1 is a certain number of campsites. It's a third of the park. So we basically split it up into thirds to be able to pay for it as we go.
And that's in this budget right now.
Phase 1 is in the budget, yes. I believe that's 49 through 69, maybe the campsites. But that's, so the water and the power for those campsites specifically. And then we'll have to let the local accommodation fund build back up over a couple of years to do phase 2 and then again for phase 3.
And what's phase 2 gonna be?
I think that starts at campsite 1 through 20 something.
Okay, all right, it's good.
I have a question about that. Don't we, charge to camp at Mile Creek?
We do.
So wouldn't the source of revenue under Mile Creek be funds collected?
That source of revenue is in the general fund. So it's not in, we're trying to take this from the local accommodation fee, which is the 1%, 1.5%, 3%, depending on where your
Right,
hotel is at, beds and heads. We generate about 600. Yeah, beds and, I knew I was gonna mess that up. But, we have put that in a separate fund. That's the local that council authorized many years ago.
Right.
So you're allowed to spend 50% from the previous revenue on operations, 50% on capital. So we've accumulated about $1 million in savings over the years on that. I think Mile Creek Park, Allison and her department would like to do the whole phase at one time. And that's about 2.5 million, but they only have about $1 million to pay for it. So that's what we're looking at doing, is just pay for it over time. As we do phase 1, then it's going to take a couple years to build that money back up. Then we'll do phase 2. Some options council can consider is doing a revenue bond if they wanted to go against that tax that we collect, to do the whole phase or all the phases at one time. But for now, we just kept it kind of simple. We could afford one phase, pay as you go type mentality. But obviously we could do it all at once, but we'd have to probably do a special source revenue bond. Same thing we did for the museum back in 2003 when we did the expansion. We used this money to pay for it, but we issued a bond to go ahead and pay for the whole project at one time.
So tax money can pay back a bond?
Yes. And I don't know
That's
if
exactly
it would be
right.
CD or Lawrence that would handle that, or possibly Kim.
It just like any other revenue stream, it can secure repayment of debt.
What we decided just internally is in the staff budget, we would go ahead and address a third of it and then perhaps come back after the budget was over and say, here are some other options if you have the appetite as a council to try to do it all at once.
So the fees, okay, so the fees we collect, we put in general funds, we can do whatever we want to with that.
That's right.
Correct.
Continue to be, because ATAX has to go to projects like this.
Yes,
We think
it's
that.
defined by state law.
Thank you.
Okay.
And you're gonna do a lot of that in-house, right? As much as you can?
Most of it will have to be contracted out because it's
Electrical.
Yeah, it's electrical and water is what we're doing. So the trenches are going to have to be, and we just prefer a contractor do that.
Gotcha.
Hey, Tony, you're up.
Okay. Thank y'all for having me tonight. I'm going to present on the status of the CIP, capital improvement plan, and the fleet. The objective of the CIP is to have a dedicated replacement plan for all vehicles and equipment in the county and ensure each department fleet needs are met, rather than wants. And a cost savings overall by reducing capital purchases by only buying what the county needs and by repurposing vehicles that are beyond their useful life, maybe in one department, but still have the useful life that could be utilized in a different department. This slide is just a basic example of 2 years of the CIP. I know it's kind of hard to do that.
It'll be a test later.
Yeah, I apologize for that. I have pronounced yellow a lot of seal. But this is just an overview of the decision-making progress of what has been replaced, what we're predicting needs to be replaced, and my recommendations to administration. Going into the departments our fleet by departments. The Sheriff's Department has approximately 147 vehicles. That's including their mowers, their UTVs, the specialized vehicles, the on-patrol vehicles, the detective vehicles. And they're one of the bigger departments because they have more on-road use than anybody else or any other department. Next is our solid waste department. They have roughly 83 vehicles in their fleet, or pieces of equipment, I should say, in their fleet. One picture here is one of the roll-off trucks. They have the roll-off trucks, the road tractors, the walking floor trailers, excavators, tanner shredders, and such as that. The next department would be the Roads and Bridges Department. They have around 97 vehicles of their, or pieces of equipment in their fleet. Anything from, as you can see, the road tractor there, mentioned that's newly bought, replaced this year to go with the new lowboy trailer to haul the largest excavator we have in the county, which is a Cat 330, just to meet the weight permits. And they have staff vehicles, the dump trucks that was mentioned earlier. And the next is building maintenance. They have kind of a smaller fleet. They only have 17 vehicles. They have one mini excavator and one skid steer. Their vehicles primarily used to just shuttle employees to the buildings to do the repairs. In the EMS department, EMS department currently has 20 ambulances, has a logistics van, a department head vehicle, a supervisor vehicle, and one quick response vehicle. And I think we've replaced maybe half of that fleet over the past 4 years, 5 years. So a good replacement plan for them. Then we have the fire department next. They have approximately 83 vehicles in their fleet. 43 of those vehicles are the fire trucks, the tankers. The other 43 is staff vehicles and support vehicles such as brush trucks, the station trucks, UTVs, and such as that. The rest of the fleet, being smaller, and it's broken down this way. Airport has 4 vehicles. Administration has 2 pool vehicles that everybody in this building uses. Animal shelter has 3 vehicles. Building codes has 4. E911 has 1. Emergency management has 5. Rescue has 6. Engineering has 2. GIS has 1. Litter enforcement has 4. Wild Creek has 6. Planning has 1. Public service 5. Stormwater 6. Vehicle maintenance 6. And diesel record does have 1.
So Dickersville Rec has one of our vehicles? Yeah.
They have a tractor, yes.
Okay.
Tractor.
Yes.
What are they doing with the tractor?
They use it to move mulch around to different areas, and if they need to dig something up, then they use it for that. Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Very wise.
Yeah,
That's right.
right?
Say it, Joe.
So before, and I know y'all may have questions for Tony, and I think he would welcome those questions, but I just want to point out something that he blew right past because Tony's who Tony is. Before 2020, for many years, not forever, but for many years, the county did capital replacement based on one factor: who was screaming the loudest. So Tony and Ralph, through the last 5 years, should be very proud of the fact that they've made this more systematic. There's so many ambulances per year, so many fire trucks per year, so many sheriff's deputy vehicles per year, in a much more organized and systematic way, based on his first, absolute eyes on the vehicles of what it takes to maintain the vehicles. So I think with the county has benefited greatly over the last few years from that approach. And I saw him go by the very first thing on the slide, which is where you would take a little credit for that. So I just want to tell them publicly, thank you for that. It's been a good value for the taxpayer. As a matter of fact, not to get off point, Mr. Chairman, but we just had our second round of sales based on Ralph and Tony's recommendations for gov deals. And how much did we make today?
I think this sale, we had 21 items out there, 170,000 last I looked, plus the 193 that we just sold on March 19th. So in 1 year, we've sold $360,000 worth of vehicles. And also, you got to take into account all that stuff was covered under insurance. So now that we've gotten rid of it, not only did we make $360,000, we've also saving $35,000 approximately. It's going to probably be more than that on insurance premiums. So we're trying to minimize our fleet, get rid of stuff that we don't need. Lack of a better word, we're not going to hold on to stuff just because we think we're going to need it 5-10 years from now.
And it's human nature. A department gets a piece of equipment, they like it. I mentioned the roads and bridges, those 2 dump trucks. They like them, they want to hold on to them forever. There comes a point where we, from a fleet management standpoint, have to say, no, that's not the best for the whole county. So I think it's a real success story, what we're doing there. But I know Tony wants to answer any questions.
They'll argue, I just had the school district all the time, they'll argue how old that bus is.
Right.
300,000 miles on it. We need a new one. When you get a new one, they want to keep the old one.
Because when they trot it out when the council changes. I've seen that happen too.
Now, we have a program.
Force them to retire.
This hand hands the new keys off for the new vehicle. This hand takes the old keys back.
Doesn't make us popular, does it?
No, it does not.
When you spec out like the sheriff's department vehicles, are they ready to go, decaled up, radios installed and all that?
They are now. They didn't used to be because they didn't, the dealers or in procurement didn't offer the package. So we had to buy the vehicles separate and then have them up. Now the dealers are offering the packages where you can buy them ready to go. We just have to put the county radios in, the county decals on them, and they're ready to go.
Do we do that or we have to hire that out?
We outsource that. We have done it in the past in-house, but we outsource it now.
If you don't do decals for a living, you probably don't have to put those decals on.
No, not at all. No.
You got anything else? Was that your last slide?
Yeah, this is the last slide. I'm just going to say in conclusion, I just wanted to thank the past and present council for the budgets and administration and finance for the budgets over the past few years. It just allowed this capital improvement plan to do what it was intended to do, to make the fleet ready. We recently had 2 disasters, one natural, one not natural, the Table Rock Fire and Hurricane Helene. And the fleet was ready. The fleet was ready both times. We didn't have any breakdowns, any call-outs during either one. And the fleet stands ready now for the next disaster. So I just wanted to thank everybody for that. And that's all I have.
Does anybody have any questions?
I have one question. You keep a plan years in advance on this, right? I mean, we know, if I could ask you, like, what are we going to replace in 2 years? You can tell me. Right?
Yes.
With the current disruptions we're having in supply chain and issues we're having, have we pivoted or made any changes in buying stuff in advance?
We have not yet. We had to make those same changes back during the COVID years. There was 1 year, 2024, that we didn't buy hardly any capital because although we had the purchase orders sent out and we're waiting for them to build, we would get calls from the dealer or the manufacturer that we're just not going to build. So we had to step back, refocus, look at the fleet. That's why we have so much in surplus now that is being sold now, is because we held on to so much during those times because we didn't know whether we was going to get new fleet or not. So we had to repurpose vehicles. Once we got through the COVID years and realized, the manufacturers were open and we could get more inventory in, and that's when we decided to sell that. But we are prepared just like we were with COVID, you know, if we go through that again, to stop that buying and keep what we have.
Is there anything we get specifically that's made in the country that we can't get this year, or?
No, it's not yet.
Okay.
So far, everything that we have ordered or asked for, we have gotten.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I have a few questions. 20 ambulances, what's the condition of the fleet?
10 of them's in really good shape, because we replaced them, you know, over the past 3 years. We do need to replace, I think we stay on the 4-year schedule. We'll be in really good shape by the time the ones that were bought 3 years ago rolls around. It'll be time to replace them. They'll have upwards of 150 to 160,000 miles on them, not including the idle hours. That's another big thing beyond just the mileage on a vehicle, especially with EMS, Sheriff's Department, because they do put a lot of idle hours on them.
So you're saying 10 are in excellent condition, the other 10, you think the refresh rate will take care of it?
They, over the next few years, yes.
Okay, okay. How about,
Just
Councilman
on
Bowers?
that
Yeah,
question,
stay on that.
the ambulances. We are at 11 trucks a day currently, right?
That's right.
And we have 10 that are in excellent condition. So
10 that are in need, yes, sir.
So we're one shy from having excellent condition for every truck. What is our, in the past, we had a spare for each, which may have been a little much, but I know that with finding parts and things happening and transmissions going out or motors blowing or whatever, right? You know the game. What is our spare situation like now?
As it stands today, we have a spare for every front line vehicle. And you said there was 11, but there's 20 total. So we have 10 that are really good that have been replaced recently, and we have 10 that can serve as spares. What we try to get them to do is rotate as much as they can out of the newer to limit the amount of mileage and hours on the engine, and to get all of the useful life out of the spares.
And we're buying 4 new ones a year?
That's what's in.
And when I first got on the council 4 years ago, they were 150,000, now they're 320,000.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing how expensive they are.
There's 20 of us, and then two of these.
Actually, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No, that's
I'm
great,
sorry.
that was good. Next question is roll-off trucks.
Mhm.
I counted 6.
You'll have 9 total.
We have not, oh, they have 9 total?
Mhm.
Okay. They're rolling usually every day, 5? About 5?
Yeah, it's gonna depend, but 5 or 6 every day.
Okay, and what are the condition of those 9?
There is a couple that needs to be replaced. I'll put one into, for my recommendations to be replaced this year. We replaced, 3 last year. 1 2 years ago, and then there was 2 more 3 years ago.
Okay, of the 5 or 6 that are rolling every day, what's your assessment on those?
Those are in good shape, but they normally drive the newer vehicles.
Okay.
So
All right, so they're in good shape. What about police? You've got 14 vehicles requested. Now, give us the background on that, because that used to be 80 a year, wasn't it?
It used to be 80 a year. We agreed, I think, last year to go up to 10, or was it maybe 2 years ago?
For 2026, I know there's 10 in there to be replaced out of their normal. 4 are going to be for 4 proposed deputies that are in the budget for 2026.
Yeah, so the background there, and Mr. Grant's correct, is that we're adding employees as part of a larger redistribution of resources between the administrative side and the sheriff's office side. And so to add 1 deputy per shift as well as a detective, we needed to up their vehicles. So those are not increasing the annual rollover.
So the annual is going to be 10.
That's right.
Okay, what is your assessment on police vehicles?
based off of the idle hours and based off the usage of the vehicles, because they're more often than not heavy use, heavy acceleration, heavy braking. I would recommend 10 a year.
And how do you feel the ones that are rolling regularly? What kind of condition are they in?
They're in good to fair condition. So there's no immediate need to get them off the road. The logic or thinking behind going from 8 a year to 10 a year is to keep the mileage down and the idle hours down. They're wanting to get closer to, from roughly 180,000 miles turn in to closer to 150,000 miles turn in.
Okay. Roads and bridges, you deal with vehicles and then anything that has wheels, right? Like a skid steer?
Wheels, tracks, yes.
Okay. Roads and bridges, what's your assessment on their equipment?
Most of their equipment's in really good shape. They tend to be one of the departments that are stickler about taking care of their equipment. Not to say that all departments do not take care of them, but they go above and beyond. But they're in good shape. Once we get, if what I've recommended gets approved in this upcoming budget with the dump trucks, then they'll be in really good shape.
Okay. So overall, you're content with the fleet you're dealing with?
Yes.
Okay. Now, let's talk about your building.
Okay.
And the building maintenance. Give it an assessment on your building.
I need a new one. To be honest, I need a new one.
Is that the Hinkle Jeep building?
That's the old Jeep,
Yeah.
yeah, Hinkle Jeep.
It's been there.
What are the problems you're having with it?
Just the age of it, basically. We can't upgrade. We're running out of room. The newer ambulances we're buying are overweight. Our two-post lifts will not lift them. In order to go to larger lifts, we need a thicker floor. The floor in that building, I think, is only 4 inches thick. To have a 26,000-pound lift or more, you need at least 6 inches thick on the floor. So we only have one alignment right now that will lift the 10 new ambulances that's just been bought. So that runs into an issue, scheduling issue with getting ambulances in and out of there. There's sometimes we can do them, just putting them up on ramps in the floor. The electrical, probably Dirk and Tim could talk more about the electrical on it, but it's an old building. It was built in the 70s. It's beyond its useful life. The building below us, the building maintenance building, it floods once or twice every 3 years, or it seems like. I mean, I have pictures and videos of it, of a foot of water standing in it.
Do you feel the same way about that building?
Yes.
And that, you just mentioned all those problems, does that mean it wouldn't even be up for being repurposed?
I wouldn't think so.
So it needs to be raised?
Mr. Rover, what's your plans for that? You have long-term?
Yeah, my idea for that building is we would like to consolidate operations at County Farm Road. We've got a big piece of property out there. Having multiple campuses for multiple different departments creates a logistical problem for Tony, for roads and bridges, for everyone. Just moving equipment around. If we could get everybody together, limit the number of roofs we have to maintain, limit the number of miles we just use shuttling things around, we would be providing a better value to the taxpayer. So while I agree with what you're saying, Mr. Say, we do have, and we were talking as a staff about this just last week, we have a lot going on right now. As we start resolving some of these, we're going to want to come back to you with a plan about County Farm Road, the long-term plan for County Farm Road. We've got folks looking at a master plan right now that Dirk's been talking with them about, so that we'll be prepared when we start this. The roof gets concluded, the communication building comes online, which actually solves 1/3 of the problem with the Hinkle Jeep location, because it moves EMS out.
Sure. So
we're making progress there. But we've got to come back to you with that once we are ready, once we have the capacity to handle.
Yeah, my take is, everybody should just go down the line, I guess. My take is, we've got these 8 big projects, so let's get most of them to the finish line. And then after that, we have to look at what the next big project's gonna be. I mean, my personal feeling is your facility, we're doing the sewer up there, so that's a prerequisite.
That's right.
For that, so that's gonna be in the works. Then after that, that would be my first choice. Now, I don't know how the rest of you feel about it. Does anybody want to land on it?
I'm all for it. I think we actually ditched it last year. Part of the grander plan of things. I think that it's not a matter of if, it is a win. It's got to be done. That, to your point, I mean, Jockey Lot Lake is a real thing, right? And that's right where you're at. So it's a real thing.
The biggest problem, the biggest problem with the vehicle maintenance building we're currently in is it was built and designed to be a Jeep dealership. It was never designed to maintain over 500 pieces of equipment and vehicles. That's the biggest problem. For overall layout and design, there's the way you drive through the middle of it, that's wasted space where, lifts could be. This is the overall design. It was never designed to be a fleet maintenance building. It was designed to be a Jeep dealership in the 70s.
The largest.
Largest in the world.
I agree that I think it's a priority. I like the idea of consolidating county resources for a bunch of reasons. It's also uses less gas and fewer miles on this equipment if we're not constantly moving it around, which is one of your goals as well. And then I know there's a lot of grants and energy and stuff to reuse buildings, but it sounds like this one is not reusable. So I'd be interested to hear what y'all want to do with that.
Counselor, the chairman had asked specifically, and I got off track because he'd asked what my plan there was. The plan would be to unload, surplus that location.
Yeah,
We don't need that location once we're out of it. We don't need to find some other ad hoc use to stick in there and suffer. We need to move on.
Okay. But I'm not sure I agree that we need to make sure that we've checked off these 8 before we start other projects, or we need to figure out like whether this is more important than something else that comes out. To me, that's part of why this rate at which the county is growing and the size of our staff, I think we're going to just be regularly in the job of starting the next project and the forward thinking. And if we just arbitrarily say 8 is enough and we're going to stop here and not do stuff, then I think we're penalizing the 10-year plan or the 15-year plan that people are seeing. So I'm not sure I agree that there's too many, balls in the air and we should take a pause. I think we should, thankfully we've brought on a project manager who's really helping keep this in mind, and we're doing this kind of some forward-thinking staff who's helping us plan 5-10 years in advance. I think we can manage. If the staff is coming here and saying they can manage the projects, I think we can handle it.
I agree. You need a new building. Thank you. I've been out there. I know. Sewer upgrade out there. You're planning for this.
That's right. We're thinking
that right.
all of this is part of that plan, step by step.
Well, we got a lot going on right now. I don't know that you were saying complete every project.
No, but just
get a little further into the project, but yeah, you're definitely on the radar. So, thank you.
Yeah, I think we can complete these projects, but also be planning for what our next projects are gonna be at the same time.
Council Holloway, you got any thoughts on it?
No, I think as soon as we clear a slot by completing some of our present projects, slide this one in the slot and start on it.
Okay, so I think at this point we feel that next big project, whatever the timing is, will be that. I think once we see the price tag, we'll think twice about it. I think maybe that's good.
I do have one question.
Yes, sir.
The weight difference in the new ambulance versus the old, what is it? Vehicle weight, or is it a different style of truck? Or
It's a different style of truck. The previous trucks were van chassis.
now they're trucks.
Now they're trucks. Now they're 4-door trucks or extended cab trucks.
Mr. Chairman, I do think we have a document that y'all might benefit from having, just so you know that we're not bringing you a list of, these are the 10 things we want. Give us all 10. This lays it out moreover to let you know that the requests are much broader. We're narrowing it down through the work of Dirk, Ralph, the department heads collaborating with us. It's a much larger endeavor, sorting out what's needed this year, next year, following year. But I think Mr. Greeno may want to speak to that.
Yeah, just real briefly, what we did when we brought Dirk on is not only look at the public safety building out back, but start looking at where we can have someone oversee the plans for the next 5 years. So what he did back in the fall is he got with each department and had them submit a request of what they're wanting or they're needing. And so we've compiled all that under this one document. Just kind of give you an idea of what's out there that you may quote here on the street from departments of what they're requesting, not just a vehicle maintenance building, but some other items that's out there. So just want to give you that for informational purpose. This is not a recommendation. It's just to give you an idea of projects that people are thinking about that they would like to do down the road. It's also got the public works building out there. The prices are just, to be honest, guesstimates. We don't really know until we get into the design phase with an architect or an engineer that can kind of tell you what, based on what you're looking for, what the cost could potentially be. This deals with fire stations. This deals with EMS stations. So this is just for informational purpose for y'all to have out there. Obviously, we'll tweak it every year as we go through the budget process. But just want to make you aware of it.
What about the corner? Because I know when I visited there, they said they needed more space. What is your assessment on that?
I'm really not up to date on what their needs are, but
Yeah, I'll tell
You
you.
would know, right?
As far as the coroner, no, I'm not.
No, they don't. That's a conversation I'm having with the elected official there. They do want, the previous coroner wanted more space, current coroner wants more space. Obviously, we have that situation where the city of Liberty uses what would be the logical expansion area there. So that's something we're gonna need to work out in the next year or two. Corners.
What is the arrangement with the police, Liberty Police? And
It goes back several years. It's a handshake. It's a handshake. They get to use that building. That's the deal.
How
So
long?
till we tell them to stop.
All right.
same theory.
Well, I mean, we need the space.
It's a real challenge now. So I know the coroner's needs are legitimate. We really need to be talking with the municipalities about a lot of these types of issues.
Now, because I know the space, like the voter registration in this building is pretty tough. What would be your solution there?
Well, we've talked about a couple of different models. One would be if we could find a different location for the coroner, or if we were able to move them into the Liberty Police Department spot.
So having voter registration in Liberty would
Be
an
perfectly
option?
fine. It'd be centrally located in the county, so that would really argue for it as opposed to having it up here.
And where are they located in this building?
They're located right back around in this direction. They're in the corner where Veterans Affairs. They kind of share this
They
direction.
have
Sorry.
storage.
They're a little bit scattered out over this building. They
Yeah.
have a big storage area downstairs in the basement, then they have their offices right over here by Veterans Affairs.
So you want to try to put everything in one.
It'd be good to do that. The issue with voter registration in this building really is they have to take over our hallways and a lot of our locations during early in-person voting. This area was not designed for the way voting is done now. It's one of the side effects, I'll say this out loud, it's one of the side benefits, I think, from the communication building, that we could move that rescue equipment out, that emergency management equipment out, and give the voter registration guys a place that they could operate just during the election cycle. But we're looking at a couple of different models there because they are space constrained. We're adding an employee in this budget that you all have passed second reading for Veterans Affairs. They're tight already. So these space constraints are not something that we can keep. The handshake deals we have with the municipalities are something that we're going to have some serious conversation about.
And if I could add on, Veterans Affairs, we're adding a representative for them because we can go into it, but they serve the veterans, and I think that's very important. So they're all right over there in that area. And I'm not sure if they have the space to bring on that extra position. I'm sure they're going to figure out a way to find space because they desperately need a veterans representative.
So if you were able to move voter registration, you could give them more space?
That would be the thought.
Okay.
Because I don't think we would need to move Veterans Affairs because we have so many veterans that they're used to this is where they get it.
Well, yeah, I would imagine that the help that they need is mostly with the tax office.
And that's right.
Right.
That's right.
That's the thought process.
I
And we
don't
talked
know
about,
my taxes.
we're talking about elections, geographically Pickens is central, but population-wise, I would guess that more population is between Easley, Liberty, and Clemson. And that would be more centrally located in Liberty if we have that location there.
That's going to be on you. I mean,
just a thought.
I'm not making eye
we
contact.
don't have time.
I'm saying we have to have these tough
Can I ask
conversations.
you a question? Sorry, I'd like to understand this bar graph. It's got two y-axis and the line's not labeled. Can you help me understand what this means?
We're about to get in the world of dirt.
No, so basically what I tried to do was just give a depiction of the quantity of requests per the department itself. Nothing more, just so that you have a visual concept and put things in a perspective of who the needy departments are versus the ones that really don't need much.
Okay, what is the yellow line?
That is a mistake. That is a Microsoft thing that it decided to do on its own. I tried to remove it, and all it did was move it in different locations. So I apologize.
No, that's fine. I'm glad
Well, I'm not the only one that gets that mistake.
Okay, And then I want to, about this, can you turn this into what is a process? So these department heads come to y'all, is that part of the sitting down leading up to the budget conversation? Where they sit down and say, these are the things I want in the next few years, and then y'all determine what goes into the budget that you present to us?
Yes, basically. So we started out, we kind of moved it back a little bit. We started the budget process in October for them to submit their CIP, their personnel request, and then their operational budget. We opened it up end of October, right in that time frame, having to do back by the end of December. That gives us more time to really, like what we did this year, is really sit down with the department heads. Used to it'd be like 30-minute meetings. We really didn't have time to understand what they're requesting. This time we have more time to meet with them. Some departments with Dirk and Tony was involved, and then obviously HR, we may have met with one department, I think it was over 3 hours, and we really sat there to listen. We weren't on a time constraint of, well, we got another meeting coming in.
Yeah.
So we asked them to submit everything by basically December 31st, and then we compile that, start our meetings in January and February, and then we sit down as a committee and make a recommendation to the administrator, and then we go over everything with him, and he may take something out, he may add something. I think this year the only thing that you really added back was a position for communications and engagement. That's right.
So at this point, this is the dream list from the department heads, or is this what y'all have culled down and say, yeah, we're likely to?
No, this is a dream list. We just want to put everything out there. So if you hear it on the street, at least from what they've told us on paper, it is on this list.
So if you look at the bottom of year 26, this year's budget request, you'll see that there's almost $55 million
Right.
in requests.
Yeah.
We didn't bring that to you.
You have already crossed out many of these.
Yes.
Correct. The public service, the 29 million, that's the large one. The upgrade to 18 Mile Creek, I think council's having discussions on that. We're not making a recommendation on that. I think that's a bigger issue. One thing that's not on here, and I say this because I think y'all are going to meet with him in June, but the coroner, we didn't know the dollar amount. The clerk of court is wanting a parking garage, and he's been asking that for years. So you may hear that in June. I think y'all pass along the information. Okay.
How many stories?
Like I said, that is a request.
3 or 4?
No.
5? Okay.
Five-story parking garage?
So
He needs 450 spaces, plus he wants the catwalk from the garage to the physical building.
but we're trying to be transparent. If we hear it, we want y'all to be able to hear it from us and not on the street. We
But the
want
thing
y'all
is,
to
we
have.
have to make decisions of that versus a 55-year-old building.
Right,
I mean, it's a no-brainer.
yeah. But we want you to be aware of it if you hear about it. There's some other stuff that people are wanting, but we're not necessarily recommending. What we are recommending is on page 43 and 44 for 2026.
That's good. Do you have anything you want to add?
No, it was an interesting way of doing things. It's a little different for me, but it was definitely enlightening. And when you ask people to give you the wish list, you get a wish list. So the 54 million is really not surprising to me. Some of the actual items are a little interesting, but this is nothing new or special.
So after these 8 projects, what would be number 1 on your list?
Whatever I'm directed to do next.
We're still going to sit down as a committee and talk about that.
Tony, you have any questions for us, Tony?
Unless
Mr. Chairman, I would say just in terms of process, and this goes back to Councilor Linville's question. Over the years, Ralph and I have tried different models. We tried Ralph, go meet with the department heads, bring me a budget. Let's see how it looks. We've tried, Ralph says, Ken, you meet with the department heads this year. You come to me with a budget, and let's talk about what's practical. We tried that one year. And we've tried different versions of that. This year, landing on the idea of we've got these subject matter experts, including Sam back there, and letting the departments come and really spend time with a committee. We're getting away from just one person and one set of presuppositions, prejudices. Instead, it's more of a group effort, and I think you're getting a better priority list at the end. Unless directed otherwise, my intention would be to continue with this model, because I think it's worked a lot better, and the departments feel like they're being heard, as opposed to just coming in and pitching to me or pitching to Ralph. I think they feel like they're really being heard. And so this has been a good process. I feel like this is a good list y'all have.
Okay, so as far as capital, we got $8 million plus projects going on. I think once we get through those a little bit, at some point, depending on where we land, building maintenance and vehicle maintenance will probably be next on that list. Your proposal, Mr. Roper, $11.9 million new capital, third reading on June 2nd.
That's correct.
Any other questions or comments about the capital budget?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned the coroner's office expansion. You talked in great detail about voter registration and Veterans Affairs. And the hurdle there is the city of Liberty. What would you like to do with those difficult conversations that's going to have to take place with the city of Liberty?
I think Mr. Lang, Council Lang, and Mr. Roper should discuss that after we get through the budget. How are they going to tackle that? And come up with some idea. It's not my area. I don't really have any. I mean, I have issues with the city of Pickens, which I deal with, and we all have issues with that local. And I think each council with the administration should work with the administration, and whatever they come up with is fine with me. I don't know how the rest of you feel.
So the reason I ask is we have a direct need for space. I mean, that's something we just spent 20 minutes talking about, and that is our space, and it's real space. That's where it affects the whole county and not just a council district. It's not just we have a handshake agreement with Liberty to let them use this. We actually have a need. So either we're going to have to build, expand, do something, and forget the coroner's office. Just with Veterans Affairs or the elections office, right? And that's the only reason I even question or bring it up is we do have a real need. Now, it may not be on the capital budget to move or convert that space for this year, and that's fine, that's great. But if that's a difficult conversation we gotta have, then it does affect the whole county.
Yeah, and I think it's okay to start talking about it. I mean, I think you're not going to say, let's assume, you're not going to say to the city of Liberty, leave tomorrow.
Right.
You're going to give them a certain period of time and say, we need the space, you're welcome for, we gave you this for 7 years, free charge, but we need the space. And you got X amount of time to leave. I mean, that's, there's nothing going to happen until you're not going to just do it tomorrow. So, I mean, I would say just after the budget, two of you sit down and talk about it. Unless it's some outrageous thing where you're giving them all this other stuff, like another building or something. I won't have a problem with it myself. I don't know about the rest of you.
Do we have this arrangement with any other municipalities?
We were just talking about that. We do have the Clemson Paul Partners building, which is not with the municipality, but
Right.
that's I can't think of anything with Central where they're using space for us. Not easily anymore. We used to have all sorts of little partnerships there. So I think not Pickens anymore. So I think Liberty, well, we do technically kind of share a parking lot with Pickens City, but that's not a huge issue, except when they park particularly ugly vehicles in front of the museum. But I think Liberty is the most high profile. And I have, Mr. Lang, I'll say I have thoughts. I had a business in Liberty for many, many years, and that's my hometown. So I have thoughts about what Liberty could do. They're divided among, I guess, 4 different locations right now between their public works, their city hall that they're renting, and this facility that they're just using at our goodwill. So it's a serious issue for them. Mindful it's an election year for them, so we're going to have to tread lightly, but it's a conversation that I would welcome.
I think see how the election goes and then start talking with the new administration. Okay.
How do you get started soon?
Yeah,
Well,
right, yeah.
Because it's going to take it, you're going to probably give them at least a year.
See what those officials are proposing. That should be part of their campaign.
Right. We will need to talk about that.
Yeah.
That's fine. Any other comments on the capital budget? Okay, we're good to go. Thank you very much.
I appreciate what you're doing with W. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Big deal.
That was one of my questions, but you answered it, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 4 is going to be 2D, actually. Fiscal year operations budget. Okay, there's a couple of things I want to do. First is I want to deal with 2 issues that we have to clean up. And then after that, anything you want to talk about on the budget. Okay, so let's start with issue number 1. Before we get to the final reading on June 2nd, we need to discuss pay for employees. So, Mr. Roper, what's your recommendation on that?
And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that. We've been a little quiet about that because we wanted to give you all time to absorb that and, quite frankly, watch what some of our competitors, our sister and brother organizations are doing. You've seen different towns around us, school district, you've seen different people talk about what they're going to do with pay. One thing we know is when staff advocated for and council passed moving into the compensation study, I guess this would have been 2 years ago, we made a promise to our employees. And one of the promises we made was we're going to get you up to the market average. We're going to try to get you to the market average no matter who you are. If you're a recycling attendant, if you're a paramedic, if you're a deputy, we're going to get you to the average. That study went through. Last year's budget process was very difficult because we had to hew really closely to having that money to be able to implement it. At the end of the day, it was a huge step forward, and it got us to the 50th percentile. But we told the employees then, we need to have longevity pay in Pickens County. We need to be able to reward you for staying with us. And so we told them we're going to work hard to get a 1% step each year. So each year you're with the county, you get a step increase for your longevity to reward that loyalty. The staff budget that we gave you includes that 1% step for all county employees. In addition to that, taking into account what you already referenced tonight, which is how expensive things are now. We've also, and have fully funded in the budget that you've already given second reading to, a 4% cost of living adjustment for every employee. So between the step and the COLA, you're talking about a 5% for the employees. I think this is the year that we can afford to do that. I think it sends a great message to the employees, and it would apply to every single county employee, save 7. I think in looking at that promise that we were trying to get everyone to the 50th percentile, everyone to the market average, 2 groups stood out that we did not need to do that with. The 6 of you, because state law basically wouldn't allow us to do it through the budget this way. It would have to be after the next election before it took effect. And with me, quite frankly, and perhaps less said here is better, but I would pass this around just so you would have context. I actually looked at the analysis with me. What do my colleagues make in similar sized counties? And I found out, and I'm going to hand you this, although I would appreciate it if you kept some of it confidential because you'll see when you see it. That I'm there. I don't need the 4%. I don't need the 1. And so I don't want to make a big deal out of that, really. I'd ask, and you'll see from the email at the very top line is Ralph telling me I'll keep this confidential. So I messed that up already. But just so you'll know the thought process, I don't want this to be a hindrance for the county employees. So we're recommending 4% COLA for all county employees, save the 7 of us, as well as 1% step for all county employees, save the 7 of us. I'm not asking you to digest this for tonight. This is for a later conversation. But that's my recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so I believe it's in the budget already, but I'm going to make a motion to do that anyway, which is going to be a step increase for all employees and 4% COLA. And it freezes to pay the county administrator as well as the county council. That's my motion.
Second.
Do I hear any discussion on that? Okay, Mr. Bowers, this was a big priority for you, pay. You were the one that actually instituted the pay structure under your leadership. What's your take on this so far?
So far, I think that this was my concern, was staying with the steps and keeping it moving the right direction forward. So I'm happy with this.
Okay, good. All right. Any other discussion on that issue? Okay, those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed, same sign. It's going to go to third reading.
Thank you.
Okay, next item up was the library budget was submitted to the budget committee, and we did not receive that. It was just a placeholder in the first and second reading. So the administration has a recommendation on the library budget.
Yes, we put the library budget request through the same process we put all other departments, which was have it go in front of the budget committee. So I'll let Mr. Greeno speak to that.
Yeah, just a little back in context. If you look on about the 6th line, they'll say library for 2026 is 0. The only action y'all have taken was on second reading to move the library into the general fund. So now you have to give it some type of dollar amount to approve for their budget. So what I did, I think everybody has this handout. If you don't like the parentheses around the revenues, I'll be glad to give you a clean copy. It's all the same in the end. So you have the 2025 budget. It's 4.1 million for revenue, and then on the second page you have the expenditures of 4,078. Second column is their request. I believe that was forwarded to council on what the library requested for the budget for 2026. So I wanted to show what the current budget is, what they are requesting, and it goes ties back into that supplemental information that was passed along to you guys, and then the recommended budget from the budget committee. We met with the library director, the assistant library director, and 2 board members probably about 2-3 weeks ago. Listened to what they had to talk about for their budget, what they were requesting and why. And then we met, myself, Samantha, and Dirk, who just left. We met last Wednesday and came up with a recommendation. You can see it's based on our recommendation as putting them in the general fund as council has directed. I've calculated the millage on an operational millage at the 4,132,494 for the real estate taxes. That's based on 110 or 810,000 in change for an operational mill. So that gives them total revenues that would move into the general fund, about 4.5 million. Then we looked at their operational cost, and you'll have that 4th column that says request recommend. That's the difference between what they requested and what we're recommending. And so the 39,000 is to the good. If you're looking at what the difference is, it's saying we would save that amount of money in that 4th column. So overall, we're looking at 4.5 in revenue. On the second page, the total expenses for the library would be 4.357 million. Obviously, y'all can recommend whatever you want for third reading, but that's our recommendation.
So you're recommending the 4.357?
It's on the second page. Yeah, 4,357,059 for expenditures.
So I'm going to make a motion to add to third reading the budget of the library for $4,357,059. Now, that's my motion. And that looks like about a 7% increase in spending over last year.
That's right.
Do I hear a second on that?
Second.
Do I have any discussion?
Yeah, I don't understand why we're projecting a 4.5 million or 4.5 million revenue on a 4.3 budget. Why would our revenue not match our budget?
Well, obviously, that's based on 5.1 mills at a operational millage. So you're going to bring in that amount of money, and we're proposing the expenditures to be at 4.3. The differential is $190,000 that we would have extra. It would be in the general fund.
I understand that. So when I get back to the years and years of conversation, especially around the library, the value, we kept it set at 4 point whatever mills, and the value of the mill's gone up, and that's how you end up with money at the end of the year and all the things. So I guess for accounting purposes, I'm asking the question, why are we not setting the projected, why is our budget 190 less than what we're projecting to bring in? Why don't we adjust the millage, I guess, Mr. Chairman, is what I'm asking.
And that's obviously one option the council could. If they wanted to reduce the millage from 5.1 mills, I think that'd probably equate to 0.2 of a mill, maybe 0.3 of a mill, doing off the top of my head. You could reduce the millage in the general fund if you wanted to, or you could take that money, the 190,000, and you could use it instead of taking 2.9 million out of fund balance for capital for 2026. You'd be taking out 2.7 million, and that will show I have a.
But for good accounting, shouldn't the line say for capital and not for library?
Well, we're moving, in the end, July 1st, it's all going to be up under the general fund.
I understand.
So we're not really saying that so much is going to be for the library and revenue. We're just saying their budget is going to be, if council makes that action, 4.3.
Yeah, Mr. Reader, and I understand that, and I'm with you 100%, except the piece of paper in front of me is saying 4.5 million in revenue coming in, and you're spending 4.3. And I get it. I would feel comfortable with that 190,000 being listed for capital. I think that's a brilliant idea. And that way you don't adjust the mill, you don't have to touch the mill. But accounting purposes on paper, it would make more sense to me. If you follow.
Right, I think I am, and this is just a part of the overall general fund balance.
Right.
If we would have blended it in, when we recommended it back in April, you wouldn't really be seeing the $190,000. But this, because of it's unique for next year, going out of a special revenue fund into the general fund, that's just how it shows on this.
So you just made I'm sorry, like,
Go ahead.
you made just a general guess of what you would allot for their budget, and then after you met with them and saw what their needs were, you came in a little bit under.
Yes, based on their request and based on what we feel is needed. It's under what they requested.
Mr. Brainer, I have a question. They have a request amount for fiscal year that is for revenue that is under the revenue that you have listed by about $20,000. And that, I'm curious because by voting to take them off of their independent millage and put them in our millage, they went from an educational millage, which has a higher value, to our millage. So shouldn't that number have decreased instead of increased?
Well, I'm not really sure how they came up with the top line number of 4.1 million. If you take 5.1 divided by 4.1 million, you get $806,000. An educational mill is $828,000. So I'm not sure how they calculated the value of a mill. Value of an educational mill was $828,000. So it would have been more money than what they're projecting, but I would leave that to the library director and let her explain how she calculated revenues for the real estate taxes.
Okay, so we're not actually giving them more revenue, it's just there's an error in their calculation for what revenue would have been.
Yes, this is their calculation on revenue.
Okay. I have another question. On salaries and wages, it looks like there's a bunch listed as that they asked for something that we did not approve. Can you explain why we are, or the choice that was made that those numbers are less?
They requested and that's where I'll reach out to Sam, but they requested 1 full-time position, 2 part-time positions. We're not recommending the full-time position or one of the part-time positions. We are recommending a 1 part-time floater position. So if someone calls out, then they can have somebody already on staff that they can go out there and, take cover for that position for that day or for that week. So what they requested is we're recommending less because we're not recommending that position.
What were the 2 positions we did not recommend?
It was the full-time collections development position, I may be butchering that title, and then a part-time PRV position. Primarily in the conversation that we had with the library, they focused on the floater position, saying it was a priority of theirs.
Okay, well, I wanted to ask, this kind of goes, in our general budget, we have that the county has a 335.2% increase in a PR budget. What is that?
Yeah, that's interesting. That's really more of an artifact, and they can correct me if I get this wrong. We've combined 3, and now we'll add a 4th employee into a new department that's aimed at addressing concerns like our communication at the beginning of the Table Rock complex fire or our communication coming out of Helene. So instead of them being spread between Alliance Pickens, Parks and Rec, or our community development, we're basically creating a new county department that we're staffing with 4 people. So that number is really sort of an artifact, I guess is the way I would describe it, just from the combination of those departments.
Existing people?
You're adding 1 position that we recommended in the budget to that new department. The other 3 were existing positions.
So the county decided to add a PR person?
That was in our staff recommended budget, that's correct.
Okay, so to me, and why would the county want a new PR person?
Just based on feedback we've received over the last year or so during natural disasters, and also keeping with the way that we see people consuming information. They need it. So we felt like we were trying to meet that need with that position.
Okay, so my follow-up is why would we say the county understands that we need to communicate more with the public and the public desires more communication and we have more things we need to talk about, but then the library requests a part-time PR person and we say that's not needed?
I can give you my answer on that, and again, they heard the pitch more directly, so they may have a different answer. But my answer on that is, up to this point, I think the library has been doing a better job than us. They do a lot of outreach and a lot of PR, We've got a new approach with Jamie Burns, who's our director for this department, who's come up with a new way that I think, if her vision is implemented, which this budget would do, would bring us on par with the communication they're already doing. I think they do an excellent job.
One thing we talked about in the committee is because the coroner asked for an additional position for a public relations, they wanted their own public relations person. We look at it as more of, let's have a consolidated PR department, for lack of a better word, and then they can handle the public relations for the county as a whole and not have each department doing their own public relations. So we're trying to bring that and merge it all up under one umbrella
Okay,
and
so,
to be the voice of one county.
so the new county employee will be able to assist the library?
If needs be, that's not the direct plan that we have. Because like I said, I think they have employees that are doing that now.
Yeah, but
doing
I
good
also
work.
think this is like the second or third year they've come to us and asked for this position.
Maybe.
So it sounds like something they need. Okay, I assume other people have questions?
Any other questions? Is that it? Any other questions?
I'd like to make a motion to amend this budget to, because we have the remaining 190,000 in here from the millage it's currently on, which was what the millage the library has been on for a while, that we use those funds and add the part-time PR position.
Okay, do I hear a second? No second, the motion fails on the second. Any other questions? Okay, I'm calling for the question. Those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed, same sign. Okay, that passed 5-1 to approve the budget of $4.3 million. Yes, it did, 5-1. All right, now back to the general fund budget. Any questions? Any comments? General fund budget. I'll start with the first question. Mr. Garino. Dispatch. Okay. When I can read the tea leaves, this is how it looks to me. It looks like the dispatchers in the sheriff's office are moving over to the county administration's budget, E911, on July 1st.
Correct.
Is it 27?
Yes, sir.
That's
what I calculated.
Okay. Now here's the tough question. You're going to be paying for those, which is none of us pay for anything. But
I understand.
You're going to be not the sheriff on July 1st.
Right.
They're going to be dispatching out of the LEC still those 27 dispatchers. Who has the final say on management decisions? July 1st.
Right. The accommodation, the agreement that I've reached with the sheriff and the chief deputy is that would come about when the new facility opened. So we're going ahead and anticipating that in this budget year, in the budget y'all are approving now, the new facility will open. When that new facility opens in March, and those employees come over here to the new facility, that's the logical time for the chain of command to change.
Okay, so even though the sheriff is not going to be paying for those 27 employees at that point, he's still going to have management authority and final say.
Right, that's just a practical consideration there, yes.
Okay. When does he get those 5 extra employees?
It'll be in the budget.
July 1?
July 1.
Okay. All right, how many, this is always a $64,000 question. The number of employees that's changing at the sheriff's office. Give me that breakdown, Mr. Bruno.
I've got in FY25 current year, we have 192 positions. For 2026, it's going to be 197 minus 27 positions plus 5 positions that are being recommended. And I think that gives you a net in the sheriff's department of 170, if I did my math correctly.
That's right. Yeah, 192 minus 27 plus 5 is 170. Okay. It took me weeks to uncover that, by the way. We should be able to look in the budget book and see full-time and part-time permanent employees. We used to see that all the time.
That's right.
And it just disappeared.
That's right.
So when somebody asks me how many people work at the county government, I have no idea.
You'll ask us and we'll say, well, we're not really sure.
Now, what has changed in the last 2 or 3 years that we don't know how many employees we have?
Couple of years ago, and Ralph can get more specific about this, but at the council level, we received instruction 3 years ago to stop talking about positions and just start talking about budget numbers. What's your salary budget? I'm not worried about the positions that go in there. So that was a direction that came, and Mr. Seda, I don't know that you opined on that position, but it was, you were on the council at the time. But I don't believe that you were involved in that conversation.
It was because the EMS pool of working, when people were out of the pool in which they could draw people from, was too narrow.
That's right.
Remember that? Council Bowers. And they said, let's make it unlimited, which was Henry's idea, which was a good idea. But that conversation changed the trajectory of all this? Is that what happened?
It did.
How?
It did. Well, we just, day to day, we're like, we can't have multiple systems running. Let's just talk about, are you staying within your budget? Now, there are practical considerations between a permanent full-time position, a permanent part-time position, and where we think we could make hay with not worrying about positions, which is temporary part-time positions. So I think you would find us very amenable to trying to get back, because I think it makes it easier on our staff.
Okay, let me just try to explain this to everybody. Okay, because I think I got it. Okay, way back when, the council used to approve every department's number of positions, full-time and part-time. We approved it. So it was 8, we approved it. You'd see in the back of the budget book, finance, 6, every department. All of a sudden, to allow the managers to be more flexible in meeting the needs, we said, we're just going to give you a budget. You can basically hire the number of people you want within that budget.
That's right.
So the numbers we really never knew. So all of a sudden that table went away. So you understand that? So what he just said, you just said to me, is the council should approve permanent full-time slots for each department,
To be the case, yes.
permanent part-time slots. But these temporary pools should probably just be a general budget number where they can maybe have 6 or 8 depending on what they want to pay. Does that make sense?
It does, and I think you're stating it correctly. At the time that we were dealing with that, particularly with EMS, there was a couple things going on. One was we were dealing with a lot of vacancies. A lot of vacancies. We also weren't paying a competitive amount. We also didn't have the equipment and the progressive standing order. Like, our EMS agency is much more healthy now. So I don't know that we need that special rule giving us that flexibility. We've got applications for every position now. And I think we would do well to get back to
Did we ever have a vote on that, or was just a guidance?
I think y'all just yelled at me.
Okay. Council Bowers, what are your thoughts on all this?
I think we had a vote on it.
Did you?
I think we did, because it was a big deal. My only concern, my only fear was we had gotten to the point, we get so fixated on a number of positions when the reality of it is that you might not be able to hire a full-time, but you can hire 2 part-time. And when you talk about your temporary positions, the pool of people, whether it be part-time firemen, part-time EMS guys, trying to think of other departments, those are the 2 that come to mind. Those folks are part-time and they're not going to be temporary. They're still part-time people. That's my only concern. That's my only fear is being hard and fast that you get this many FTEs full-time, you get this many FTEs part-time, and it's hard and fast that number when all I can do is hire 2 part-times, or vice versa. I can only hire 1 full-time. That's my only concern.
Okay, could you 2 find a common ground on this?
We could. And one of the issues, I think, that Mr. Bowers is addressing, but is a real issue, is if you have X number of part-time slots, let's just say you got 50 part-time slots for EMS, making that number up. Well, what if a guy doesn't sign up to work for 3 or 4 weeks? That's where the rub came. Instead of just adding somebody on that is willing to work, you had to drop somebody from your roles. So where we could probably make some progress is figuring out exactly what should that rule be. Yeah. And then I think we could make some progress with that and take away the last vestige of the need for that system.
So what would you propose right now we do?
I would think that we would need a clear standard that all of the employees understood, that you can be a part-time. Your primary job can be with Prisma or whoever, but you're a part-time employee, but you have to sign up for a shift every X number of weeks or days, or else we're gonna drop you from our active register and hire somebody else. And that's been fraught with difficulty, particularly during the time when we couldn't fill our roster. So you'd hang on to people like grim death, even though they never sign up.
But not knowing the number of employees you have is difficult for you, right?
That's right.
It is. And then also managing part-time temporaries when they're not picking up those additional shifts. Management is doing what they're doing. They are terminating those positions because they've been active for 6 months or longer. But that's 50 plus positions. That's, coming on to HR having to offboard, and then 50 more when they go to have a new hiring spree.
So what is your solution? Each department has permanent, full-time?
I think we should have full-time permanent positions that's locked in, part-time permanent positions that are locked in, and then an unlimited pool of part-time temporary. So obviously we know what full-time permanent positions are. Part-time permanent positions would be like solid waste. You can look at a schedule, you can look at how many people are needed there to run that operation, and you can come up with the number of positions that are needed. You can come up with a number of hours. We've done that before in the past. So those are the part-time permanent positions that we want to keep a handle on. A pool of people that, like Mr. Roper was talking about, that they may have a full-time job somewhere else, but they also want to be on our payroll in case they're needed for a call-in. We do not have a problem with having 100 of those type of positions, 200. And that's where you saw the discrepancy when I tried to put a position report together. And it was, to be honest,
730.
I always said it was unofficial.
Yeah.
But we just said, okay, add 100 part-time temporary positions to EMS. Let them sign up as many as they want to. It can be a little daunting for HR to have to onboard that many people. But I think that's where we talked about there's something like a mutual agreement or mutual understanding that would, I think, make everybody happy.
Yeah.
Council Bowers, what you take on that?
That I think is very fair. That's actually makes the most sense. In my real job, I have a fixed number of FTEs for full-time, fixed number of FTEs for part-time. PRN is really flexible.
And I think we can get better at the numbers then and start having a track record of comparison from year to year.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion to add to the third reading, since it sounds like there was a vote on it, that each department budget has permanent full-time listed, and permanent part-time listed, and then
Unlimited part-time temporary.
unlimited part-time temporary, which you'll control through a budget amount.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's my motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion on that? You want to say something?
No. We covered it well.
Okay. So that's just gonna go to, it's not gonna be final now, it's gonna go to third reading. Anything else? Okay, those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed, same sign. Okay, passes unanimously. What else do we have on the budget?
Can I ask about, has this budget been changed since our last meeting?
What I want to say about, I had a PowerPoint presentation I won't do for time's sake. That right there is the original proposed budget from the administrator at first reading. So as you noticed, for the library, we recommended 0 because that went straight to council. And that's what I was saying. Y'all need to come back and actually, what you just made a motion to do is add a budget for the library.
Right.
So this is the original budget as presented on the first meeting of April for first reading, as I said.
Okay, can you go back to that budget? So right now, under road reserve fund, based on the vote from last time, that number is now 0?
Yes. I did not make any changes for second reading. I just went for the standard to keep it less confusing of any changes that were made.
Okay, so our total budget was reduced by that 3.7.
That's correct.
Yeah, so what will happen is this will decrease by 3.7 million. I'm lining it up correctly. This line will increase by what was the number, 4.3 to 4.2?
Yeah, 4.35705. Any other questions or comments? We're at the end of the agenda. I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed, same sign. Passes unanimously. Thank you very much.